Exactly 1 year ago today, within a predominantly black neighborhood in Buffalo, New York, an 18-year-old white supremacist armed with an AR-15 style rifle opened fire at a local grocery store. Of the 13 people shot that day, 11 were black and 2 were white. 10 innocent people ultimately lost their lives on that tragic day. In a handwritten note found the day after the massacre, the shooter wrote that he carried out the attack, quote, for the future of the white race. And the epidemic of white nationalist violence in America has shown no signs of stopping, as just last week in Allen, Texas, another white supremacist, also armed with an AR-15 style rifle, opened fire at an outlet mall, killing 8 people, almost all of whom were minorities. Joining me now is Buffalo Common Council President and Senior Pastor at Truth Bethel Baptist Church, Darius Pridgeon. He also officiated a funeral and memorial service last year for some of the victims. Pastor Pridgeon, I want to thank you for joining me this morning. You frequently preach forgiveness, but you learned in the aftermath of the Tops supermarket shooting that gunman likely scouted your own church when planning his attack. You lost several friends during that mass shooting. It's been a year removed now. Have you forgiven? Have you healed?
First of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for continuing to shine a light on this horrible massacre. Have I healed? No. Am I a little better? Yes. It is still really tough, especially on the first anniversary and it being Mother's Day.
Pastor, last Saturday's shooting in Allen, Texas, I know you heard about that. It mirrors disturbingly what happened in Buffalo. You've got a white supremacist shooter equipped with an AR-15 style weapon, opening fire in a packed public setting, targeting minorities. What is wrong in America that our communities, especially those of color, are living in fear and suffering so greatly from loss?
No, I think what's happening is that white supremacists are beginning to feel more and more comfortable in being very public and carrying out their hate in public. You know, this has been going on for a very, very long time. Make no mistake about it. It is just that now, especially with some of the internet sites and especially with how communication happens now, we're seeing it more and more. And I think that at the end of the day, this has been in the heart of so many people, unfortunately, but now they're finally playing it out, and other people are pushing them and pressing them and almost rewarding them publicly for their actions.
Pastor, talk to us also about the community of Buffalo. I did start off this segment asking if you had healed, if you had forgiven. How are the members of the community doing now, a year later?
You know, I think that it is still very, very raw. Most people in the community are glad, number one, that the shooter was caught. Glad that he pled guilty, but know that that's for his benefit more than for his remorse, and trying to forgive. But, I think that people are frustrated more than anything, because after the massacre, there were so many promises and so much hope of change. And I want to say this, there has been change, but for the masses, they haven't felt that change. And it's going to take time, because the systemic racism of our area, the systemic racism across America, for that matter, didn't happen overnight or 1 year, and it's not going to change after 1 year. So I think that what went from anger to mourning is now kind of in a stage of kind of cynicism for many people. And so that brings me great concern as the Common Council president, as a pastor in this city. It still gives me great concern.
Pastor, according to an Anti-Defamation League report on extremist violence, in each of the past 5 years, more than 80% of the victims of deadly extremist violence were killed by guns. But we're finding politicians like Republicans still refusing to pass any common sense gun legislation. In fact, just this week in Texas, just days after that Allen, Texas mass shooting, House Republicans in Texas blocked a last-ditch effort to raise the minimum age to buy an AR-15. How much are you looking towards lawmakers to take action to help the members of Buffalo, the members of communities across the country that have been impacted and traumatized by these types of tragedies?
You know, one of the main functions of government is to keep order. If everything was in order, you wouldn't need government. At the end of the day, we need, 10 families need government, especially on the federal level, to really start making some changes to who can get certain guns. Now, I want to be clear. I have a concealed carry license here in New York State. This is not like some states that you don't have to have a permit. I carry. I believe in that right. I'm a military veteran. I fought I was decorated for Grenada. I was in Panama. I believe in the right to carry, but I also don't believe that everybody should be carrying, because there are some people who are not mentally stable enough to carry something that can quickly take the lives of masses of people. And to ignore that after the evidence is there, not just in Buffalo, but the evidence is there all over the country, whether it is racial or whether it is someone with a mental illness or whether it is somebody who has been radicalized. It should not be that easy for them to put their hands on a weapon and take a life. And I think, unfortunately, until some people who have been elected to office have to feel the pain that we feel here in Buffalo, that people feel in Texas, that people have felt all over this country, some of them are going to continue to turn a deaf ear to us, and act as if we don't have a problem. If there are other countries on this planet that don't have the problem that we have here in the United States, and to do nothing or to soften those laws spits in the face of the 10 people who we had to bury here in Buffalo.